Good day, everyone. Hope you're all doing really well. Let's talk a bit about the Luna 5 version in Genshin Impact. Some people feel that this is just a filler patch, it's nostalgia bait, and other people feel like this is the best event ever for the 100th time. So I think there's actually a proper middle ground to all of this. So let's get into the discussion. For me, this event was really, really cool. I felt that what was kind of lacking is that when you introduce a nostalgia type of event, you kind of are banking on the fact that people were around to experience the original content, because the Luna 5 event obviously takes you through reimagining your journey in Mondstadt, or at least the prologue quest. And it starts off funny. You get the statue of the Seven Klee, which is pretty adorable. But pretty quickly, you get into certain references of Kaya and the Lurk that were on the summertime event, on the Golden Archipelago. Alice being the Dodo King. I think a lot of people to this day might just associate it with Klee, but there's entire lore behind that. Some of the references to Valeria Mirage and Simulanka characters that we've had in some of the events, and also like if you played, for instance, a 2.8 event, you'd understand like the whole Mona perspective in that new dungeon and the assets that they repurposed from that event. Those are things that if you were around, you get, and obviously many more references. But if you weren't around, you could obviously go onto YouTube, but it just doesn't hit the same. So for me, the biggest weakness of this event was basically them not going full on with the bubble universe concept and making the old summertime events playable. So what you do is you rerun the the Luna 5 event version for 6 weeks, and then you allow people to optionally, as a downloadable DLC, play through the main story quest of the past events in a sort of little bubble universe. In that way, people can have a bit more context, and you can also then start introducing the concept of having permanent events in Genshin Impact. I mean, for me, it's crazy that we cannot have events that are replayable, especially if there's important lore tied behind it, and yet we've got a full Miliastra sandbox where people are replicating sections of other games like ZZZ and then going online and baiting people and saying, hey, we can finally jump in ZZZ. I've been guilty of that myself as well, but I think you guys kind of understand the point. So for me, this event as a long-time player was absolutely awesome. I thought the fact that you could fly with an eagle across Mondstadt and get a bit of a different view of the beautiful landscapes, that is fresh. That's a bit of a different way to re-experience old content. And I thought that, as you can see here in the background, flying with the eagle, this is what I've wanted. This is awesome. This is the type of thing that why don't they just add this also to a fun game mode as part of the overworld? Because the thing that Genshin very often fails is that they release a new region and then it's kind of forgotten. And then there's maybe one patch and there's a bit of a homage to old characters, and maybe this character, is afraid of that character. There's a couple of little jokes and stuff. But honestly, they don't do enough with it. I feel like Genshin is now old enough, mature enough, certainly has made enough money to be able to really reinvigorate the play experience throughout the entirety of Teyvat. And that's why I think a lot of people are overly praising this event. It's because there really has been a serious lack of reimagining and repurposing the old content that we've had. And that is really what a lot of people are hungry for. And now we saw with this event, oh my god, people kind of really liked it. Now, this is the type of event, if you think of the main story, that you won't really be able to pull off on Inazuma and some of the other regions. It's perfect for Mondstadt, because the whole point with Mondstadt was tying up some of the old lore questions that we've had. For instance, why didn't Venti just, one-shot Senora, etc. And then obviously the highly anticipated release of Arca, and he had to have a bit of a homecoming to Mondstadt. So the whole point of the Luna versions is to start tying up the lore. But in a certain sense, it almost feels like, why didn't they do more than with this patch? Because if this is going to be a Mondstadt related patch, release Port Dormant, because we know it's coming. Liebe told us already in the game that it's coming and so on. So it felt like the devs were really thin on content, and I was just like, yes, the story was good. The combat event was good, the flying event was good, the tea event absolutely sucked, and it's like nobody can convince me otherwise. I'm in agreement with a lot of people there. It was horrible, but it's just like give us a bit more juice or something just to kind of dig our teeth into. And as you guys can obviously see, when I got bored of this event and so on, I basically started exploring Out of Bounds. In fact, I did that for the story event as well. So there are a couple of interesting things that I'll actually show you in an upcoming video. Like, for instance, are all the statues of the Klee in all of the missing or in all of the little bubble universes where you're supposed to look for the things that are out of place? I mean, that's an interesting question that you didn't think of asking, but it's kind of interesting just to wonder about it, and we'll definitely answer that. But yeah, look, overall, I felt that this was a good event from a story perspective, but it keeps on falling into the old trap, the old criticism of having lore or event-specific content being hidden behind these limited time events. Why did I say event specific? Lore specific content hidden behind time limited events. And we know in Honkai Star Rail, we know in Honkai Impact 3rd even, because we've got the voyage log there, that we can replay certain old events. I don't know why Genshin doesn't do it. In fact, for a game that's supposed to be all about heavy lore and overworld exploration, they kind of keep on missing the ball on this. And optional DLC downloads means it's not going to bloat anyone's game. You can choose whether you want to do it or not. So I don't even think that's an argument, especially now with the whole Miliastra Wonderland sandbox being added in, and you can download stages and stuff. So that's kind of like my feeling as to this. But in any case, yeah, look, I think Genshin of itself is certainly showing its age. I'm very curious to know how many people actually played this event that are not big content creators, because the one thing that I looked at online, especially in the past, was always to see how are content creators and the community's feelings about events like these. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the times maybe there's one or two really funny things, like for instance Alice being grounded by Jean, that everyone is going to now post on Twitter, and everyone's like, haha, that's kind of funny. But the energy and the enthusiasm, I feel, is kind of like waning from a lot of content creators. I don't see them being all that super excited. Obviously some of them was, and you know who the culprits are, always going to be like, this is the best event ever, because every event's always going to be the best event by definition. But I just don't see the excitement that I used to from a lot of content creators that I follow. In fact, a lot of people that I follow don't even play Genshin Impact anymore. A lot of people that subscribe to this channel, you can see is over 9,000 subscribers, don't even play Genshin. A lot of them are like, oh, okay, hey, I haven't looked at your videos in a year, and then they come back and they're like, okay, yeah, good to see nothing's changed in Genshin. It's like, geez, is it actually that rough? But in any case, yeah. If you guys have any interesting topics you want to discuss, for instance, maybe the state of the game, whether you think Lunar reactions just absolutely suck or not, what do you think of the direction? Are you playing other games as a bit of a quote-unquote filler for Genshin? Is Genshin now your filler game? I'd be interesting to hear these perspectives, because I think having had a big community, like in the past we used to have like 100 200 comments on some of these videos, and the videos were literally just me going into the spiral abyss and ranting about Genshin. It was literally that super low effort type of videos. I certainly miss those days, and I definitely miss some of the engagement that we had in the past. And it also then becomes much more difficult to judge where people are at, because in my experience, like with myself, you kind of get into a rhythm of saying, okay, Sundays and maybe Mondays are Genshin day, Thursdays I'll do a bit of Honkai, Friday, and maybe Fridays and Mondays I'll do a bit of Honkai Impact 3rd. You kind of rotate between things. Games aren't just main games anymore, so it's kind of interesting just to see that. But yeah, there's the concept of a tightly knit community is also certainly gone, and I think that's why, in a certain sense, you can now understand why a lot of people looking at an event like this in Luna 5 might say, yeah, if nothing's going to happen except rehashing old events, even if the event quality was, I think, to some extent pretty good, you can understand people's reluctance to kind of come back to Genshin. But in any case, these are just some random thoughts I'm putting down. If you've watched it until this part of the video, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, let me know some interesting things in the comments section down below. Cheers, keep well.